but I want to say one more thing about business ideas. I think we need to have statewide business plan competitions.
How do you mean?
Well, what you do is you say we're going to have a competition, and the winner's going to get $10,000 towards starting their company. And you work with the universities all over, the various aspects of the university and junior colleges. Junior college part of the university that we have spread out across the state, and we work with entrepreneurs who want to forward business plans, and you help them think through the numbers, the marketing plan, all that sort of thing. So AFN, Alaska Federation Native, is doing that with the Alaska Marketplace now. APU has been doing that for years with real success. Companies
What
are being
about
really
Native
successful.
corporations? Are they doing it?
Native corporations have not so far, but they've done some. That's too strong. And village corporations have done some, but they've got to be viable businesses that will work.
How do you justify the fact that because of these 8A programs and these billions and billions of dollars of sole source contracts going through these Native corporations and just exploding the size of their profits, and yet there's such abject poverty in Bush, Alaska? How do you reconcile that?
Well, I don't think it's just that question. Okay, so let's step back. I'm going to change the way you posed it. Native corporations have done wonderful things for urban Alaska. They've reversed our economic model. Today, they're doing business all over the world and bringing the profits back here in the form of salaries, headquarter jobs. 80% or better of the people working for Native corporations are non-natives. So that's very important. The NANA purchase of Pegasus was a great example of where NANA is investing in an Alaskan company. It has great shareholder hire opportunities, and that capital that's now available in Alaska wouldn't be there without that Native corporation. Now, the 8A, largely what Native corporations are doing, they aren't stealing business from mom and pop companies. They're digging into Halliburton and some of those companies. That they're the ones squawking because they don't like to see all this business go to Native corporations. Now, the next question is that separation between rural and urban, or rural and the large Native corporations, and what is their social responsibility. Now, all of them have nonprofits that are doing a number of things to really help rural Alaskans.
Such as, like counseling services?
Counseling, housing.
But why not? But, that's all short
right.
term. That's,
but why not create businesses out there for the same reason that you and I aren't coming up with a lot of great business ideas out there? It's tough, and you can't just invest in any old thing. You can invest in it, and it still doesn't work. They've got to be viable business ideas, and so that's where business plan competitions can be a great way to tease out ideas you and I would never think of. I mean, back when I did the FedEx deal, I was 32 years old. Yeah. I didn't know what I couldn't do then.
How old are you now?
I'm 55.
Wow, that long ago, huh?
Yeah, and so a lot of people are saying, what I want to say is, a lot of young people come up with ideas you and I would never think of, and we want to encourage those.
Yeah, 522-Bob, 522-0750. 522-0750. Bob Poe is our guest. He's running for governor on the Democratic ticket. Let's go to Bob. Bob, you're on with Bob Poe.
I'd like to ask Mr. Poe what he thinks of the proposition that, or thought, I guess is more than anything else, is that the natives, years ago when they had their pure subsistence living, most of those villages weren't year-round villages. They were fish camps, they were hunting camps, and they were basically a nomadic existence. And now they've turned into permanent villages with no economic reason for being there. The West is scattered with the remnants of ghost towns that used to be. Catala, south of Cordova, used to have 5,000 people live there. Now no one lives there. Just why is it the responsibility of the state or of urban Alaskans to subsidize these villages that have no reason for existence?
Well, first of all, Bob, thanks for the question. And Catala, of course, I think folks know is the first place that oil was produced in Alaska. And you're absolutely right that a lot of times the community was established often where the mission was. Now, I think it's really is what it is. Alaskans live where they do, and we do have honest responsibility for all Alaskans. That's a basic belief I have, and want to make sure that Alaskans are, can feed their families and keep their families warm and have the same opportunities as other Alaskans.
At what point does the responsibility fall on the individual to go where the employment is?
Well, sometimes it does, and in large part that's what's happening. When we think about there were a lot of stories about rural Alaskans moving to Anchorage. That's largely what they're doing, is seeking jobs. And a lot of rural Alaskans, they have the same hopes and dreams as anybody else. But I think we also ought to do a couple other things that can work well. I like regional high schools. I think regional high schools make a lot of sense.
Boarding schools?
Yeah. So we can get some economies of scale, and we can improve the education quality that's available to rural Alaskans. I think we ought to be thinking about rural vocational education, and doing vocational education that's relative to the area. Maybe I could show one example. So when I ran the Alaska Energy Authority, we did a project where we were building all these fuel tanks. And one company, I challenged the engineers to see what we could do to increase employment. One of these companies put together a project where they brought all the tanks out as just pieces of steel, brought the welding instructor from the King Career Center out to the project, trained up 9 guys, got them certified in welding out there. They built all these tanks. It cut down on the footprint for the barge. They were able to really reduce their transportation costs to cover the education costs. The last time I saw that crew of welders, they were in little diamide welding tanks together. So those guys travel all over rural Alaska welding tanks together. That stuff really does make a difference.
Yeah. Social issues, obviously you're going to come down on the left on most of these. The parental consent bill. Where do you come down on this one?
I think parental notification is completely appropriate. The consent issue is really about, where the consent is a big issue is in these horrible situations
when the father's abusing the
terrible
child.
Abusive parents and that sort of thing. And so I think it just forces us into that ruining some young girl's life that if unintentionally.
If there's what they call a judicial override in place, where the girl can say simply to her school counselor, a neighbor, really anyone, my daddy's abusing me. Then immediately she gets a hearing within, I think it's a 48-hour period before a judge. Doesn't that alleviate that? What if the dad or the uncle's abusing or the caretaker's abusing?
I support notification.
Bob Poe's running for governor in the state. You got a website? I
do, bobpoe.com. It's a great website. You can find out how I stand on a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Or find me on Facebook, or I know Bob Poe.
Yeah.
Bobpoe.com is a great place.
Well, I'll tell you, it's going to be interesting for conservatives if the scenario develops where it's a Parnell Poe, because you're going to be the more fiscally conservative candidate. On at least on taxes and resource development.
And more pro-economic development.
You will be.
Yeah.
And he will be seen as the caretaker of the Palin policies. And most true conservatives that I know are not big fan of the Palin policies. So it'll be interesting. But you got to win that primary.
I do.
That's a tough battle.
And let's remember that the Democratic primary, any Alaskan can vote in that primary.
Have you seen polls between you and Berkowitz and French?
No, I don't think I haven't seen any.
None. Yeah. Where do you think you are right now in that hierarchy?
Well, because of name recognition, I'm probably the lowest.
Yeah.
I think Berkowitz has run 2 statewide campaigns, so he has high name recognition.
Right.
French has been a senator, so people have heard of him.
Of those two, who do you think is probably up in the polls right now? If you had to guess.
On name recognition only, I suspect it's still Ethan. Yeah. But there's a long way to go. We've got till August.
Well, we want to get all 3 of you guys in here during the once the primary gets rolling around and have
together?
You guys all absolutely.
That'll be fun.
That'll be a fun debate. Bob Poe, thanks for coming by. Don't be a stranger.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Good to see you.
Good talking to you. Sharice Millett, Mike Hawker coming up next. They wrote a letter to Governor Parnell asking what's going on with ACES. We'll be back with them right after this.
The Dan Fagan Radio Show, only from News Talk 750 KFQD.